Welcome, Internet world. So I was talking to my daughter, and I was talking to someone who's in Boston right now. Boston. And I thought I would make a video about the similarities and differences between Texas and New Hampshire. There really are not any similarities, okay? The one thing I can think of, East Texas, the Piney Woods. After we moved to the United States, I kind of grew up in a area greater southeast Texas. So we're talking the Coastal Bend, East Texas, the Southern Plains, Houston, Alief. You have to understand what Alief was back in the day. I had Ken come down from Virginia and visit us. And I don't think they really got to see the Alief that I knew. But I don't remember what year it was they visited. I remember we went to NASA, which was really cool, but I don't remember interacting a whole lot with them. Of course, I was younger than them. I think they were both teenagers or what do they call them, tweens. So they were a little older than me. So I don't think we had as much in common. I mean, I was still playing with G.I. Joes and those little green army men, and I don't think they had any interest in doing that. But Alief back then, you had the suburban and the rural. When they visited us, we lived in the sort of suburban area. But to get to the agricultural part of Alief, it wasn't even a 5-minute drive. It took you half a minute to drive there, depending on what street or road you were on. Back in those days, Bel Air Boulevard, it ended right there in Alief. It was a dead end. You could go to the right, you could go to the left. Now at the time, going to the right and going to the left meant dirt roads. Then they built Mahaney Elementary, and they paved the road that went in front of Mahaney Elementary. Then later they built Kilo Middle School, and that's when they paved it. They paved it up to the school, or a little past the school. There used to be farms back there. If you were to drive north, you'd hit Bel Air from when we lived, or both houses we lived in. You would hit Bel Air Boulevard, but if you kept going, you would be in what they call Old Alief, and that's where people had lots. Okay, I mean, they had more than a typical suburban lot. They may have owned half an acre, 2 or 3 acres, maybe a little more than that. There was this huge barn. At the time, I didn't know what it was for. It turns out it was a cotton gin. Well, it's gone. We had a little aeroport that was considered part of our little town, but you had to kind of drive through the farms to get to it. All that's gone. All that stuff's gone. Behind our second house was a farm. Actually, last time I looked, it looked like it's a big vacant lot, although parts of it have been built up with buildings. So if you knew the Alief of the 70s and presumably of the 60s, although we weren't even living in the United States in the 60s, Alief was semi-rural. I don't know if that's even right. because you had the suburban part and you had the rural part. But let's get, to me that was East Texas, okay? Alief was a part of East Texas. It's Southwest Houston. Today, oh boy, I would not go into Alief if my life depended on it. And that's a very sad thing to say about really one of the only two places in Texas that I lived that... What? I can't hear you, hon. Oh, in New Hampshire. Oh, somebody won the jackpot in New Hampshire. It wasn't us, sadly. But anyway, so I loved Alief. I loved Mineral Wells. You know, I did meet some really good folks in Texas, and I met, sadly, some very, very evil people. And as time goes on, I'm starting to see more positive about Texas than I used to. But okay, so the closest that I can get to New Hampshire being anything even remotely close to Texas, take the Piney Woods, okay, but make it mountainous and rocky and cold in the wintertime. I'm talking feet and yards of snow. For people who've never experienced snow, what happens is, you know, I mean, in the forest, in the fields, nobody's going to plow that, right? So what happens, it may not look like there's as much snow as there really is, because the snow will start to compact and there'll be ice on the bottom. So you have a really thick layer of compressed snow, which is ice. I mean, snow is ice. So it may only look like a few feet or, you know, 2 or 3 yards of snow, but if you actually kept measuring each snowfall, you know, you're talking like some really, really deep snow, and it does get that way. So if you, this isn't even accurate. If you take the Piney Woods and you go to the mountains of West Texas, and you put the forest, the pine forest, on and around the mountains, that's as close as you're going to get, and even then, you know. Now, I'll tell you my biggest problem with Texas, and that's the weather. Okay, I just cannot deal with the heat anymore. It gets hot here. Okay, over the last week, we've had at least 2 consecutive days of 100-degree weather. Now, the humidity was low, so it wasn't too bad. But when, you know, I lived in South Texas for 20-some years, and before that I lived in the hill country, and before that I lived in East Texas, Southeast Texas to be more precise. And the hill country was nice. Look at that sexy, beautiful woman right there. What? She doesn't like it when I tell her that. But anyway, so up here we have a relatively short summer. Each year is different. I mean, one year we did have one year where the entire summer was 100+ degrees up here. When I say 100+, I'm talking like 100, 101, 102, not much more than that. But for the most part, our summers 80s and 90s, believe it or not. Maybe upper 80s to upper 90s. But we do hit that century mark. When my late wife and I...
Where's the butter?
The what?
Butter.
I don't know. I'll have to go over there and look when I finish this, huh? Well, we moved up here. We had a hurricane. Now, you know, I lived in Texas for 40 years, roughly, or 50, closer to 50. Mid-40, I mean 40-something years, close to 50. 45 years, roughly. Anyway, And so I went through plenty of hurricanes. And before I lived in Texas, I lived on Okinawa for 5 years. And we had typhoons on Okinawa. A hurricane ain't nothing, let me tell you. It ain't nothing compared to a typhoon. You could take Okinawa, and a typhoon would come in, and they'd take like a satellite picture or a photo from a reconnaissance aircraft. You could not see the island. You could not see the smaller outlying islands. You just couldn't see them. That's how small it is. That's how big typhoons are. Once my daddy, when we had a typhoon, we were living in Makinado Heights, and a typhoon was coming. So they taped the windows, boarded the windows, the doors, everything. You stay away from the windows and walls as best you can, and there were people then and now who still live traditionally on Okinawa. I don't know how those structures survived typhoons, and there were people who lived in very, very sad conditions. They would make their houses out of war surplus and stuff, and those, I don't know how those things survived. But anyway, I just found another dime. Anyway, so you take East Texas and you put it in the mountains of West Texas, and that's still not accurate because we get so much rain up here. There are parts of Texas that I lived in where 6, 7, 8 months there's not a drop of rain, and most of that time it's 105, 110 degrees. It does not cool off at night. Yeah, it goes down 5 or 10 degrees, but it's still freaking hot. I mean, if it's 110 degrees during the day, and it cools off 15 degrees, that's still 95 degrees. And no rain, no freaking rain. Up here it rains often. Sometimes I think it rains every day up here. And sometimes the rain will last all day long and all night long. And up here, folks say they put fire warnings up, and I laugh about it because they'll say it's like sometimes you go by a fire depot, fire station, police station, a public building like a village or town hall, and they'll outside of the building there'll be today's fire danger. And it'll say medium, or it'll say moderately low, or high. Yeah, and I laugh because when you've lived in a place where it doesn't rain half the freaking year or longer, and it's over 100 degrees the whole time, and nobody thinks anything of it. Of course, what to do and not to do. I mean, you learn that from when you're a little kid, but like when you make a fire, like a campfire, you don't. I put them in the refrigerator, or wrapped them in plastic and put them in. Are they on the bottom?
Yes.
That sounds okay. So there's really no way to compare New Hampshire to Texas. I mean, the piney woods. Think of the piney woods in a hilly, mountainous, rocky environment. But our forest is dense. And we do have forest fires. So I mean, I shouldn't joke about the fire dangers up here, because we do have forest fires, and there are still old fire towers. I don't know what they call them. You can find, I don't know if any of them are still used, but you can still find, there used to be one around here somewhere, where they would look out to check to see if they saw smoke.
So you want a hamburger?
Yeah, that's good, hon. So it is an issue. But I'm like, geez, man. I mean, why don't you live somewhere where it doesn't rain half the year and it's 100+ degrees half the year, and then tell me that you have a high fire danger when it just rained every other day for 6 months.
So you gonna eat 2?
What?
2?
Yeah, I guess so. So another thing, I just found tamales, homemade tamales.
Honey, you think that chicken's still good?
I don't know. Well, which chicken?
They cooked this Saturday or Sunday in town.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe not.
Days, I know. Here, throw that in the trash.
The sad thing is right now the guy's in Boston, Bingtown. No, we don't go to Boston. Although I'd like to, but we ain't driving to Boston.
In September, I'm gonna see if Lacey will take us to the plane.
No, okay. I want to see the ships, and there's a lot of historic stuff in Boston I want to see. But anyway, and so I found somebody who makes tamales. He's not from Texas, though. He's from California.
He lives here?
He lives in Nashua, but
How are you gonna get him?
we're gonna have to go to Nashua.
What? No, we're not. Really?
I want some tamales, huh?
We're gonna see if we can meet us somewhere.
But $2 per tamale. I could spend $2 for a dozen in San Antonio. $2 for a dozen compared to $2 for one. I used to buy them by the dozen, homemade, which are a whole lot better than the store bought. I mean, I knew people that made them, and if I wanted some, they're like, let me know when I get enough orders. I'll start making them, because it is a time-consuming process, depending on what kind you make. If you get pork, one thing to ask for is make sure it don't have no eyeballs.
Oh, shut up! I mean, be quiet. Really?
Yeah, because you use a whole hog's head.
Oh, forget it.
Well, my favorite are bean and pork, not together but separately. But anyway, I was telling my daughter, we have, this area, I shouldn't say this area, Keene, which is the nearest city to us. I don't consider it much of a city. It's more like a big town. But anyway, they have 2, 3, 4 Mexican restaurants. My first wife and I think we probably went to all of the ones they had at the time, except for the taco stand, because they were never open when we had money to go there. And then figuring out when they were open was another thing, and now it's something else. But one restaurant is like, for one person, you're paying like $50, and the food's not bad. It's just we're not spending that kind of money. Of course, it's right there on Main Street too. Now, my late wife and my current wife found this Mexican restaurant. I don't know where these people are from. I assume they're from Mexico, but I'm not really sure. But they have good food.
I found the restaurant?
Huh?
You said I found the restaurant?
The one that me and Carolyn used to go to, and you and I now go to.
Oh,
I don't remember the name of it, but that was a fan. Anyway, me and Carolyn would go there as much as we could. Lisa and I, we go there as much as we can, which is sometimes once a month. Sometimes we don't even get to go. The food in Texas surpasses anything we have up here. My wife is from Virginia. The food in Virginia surpasses anything they have up here. The food is bland, and you don't get big portions. Well, this Mexican restaurant I'm talking about, you do get good portions. You get the same portions you get in San Antonio, which is pretty darn good. I mean, they're big portions. Not huge by any means.
oh my God!
Not huge by any means, but you're gonna eat. I mean, you're probably getting a little more than what you're paying for. You get more there than you would at most Mexican restaurants up there. And the thing is, you go to the market. When I say market, I mean grocery store. and you ask for flank steak, and they don't know what you're talking about. I mean, seriously, you go to a grocery store here in New Hampshire, ask for flank steak, and they're like, I've never heard of that. And you say, well, you see that poster behind you that shows different cuts of steak? That's a flank steak right there. Oh, we don't have that.
Alright, honey, you're ready.
Okay, thank you, hon. And our son over here, Boo, he came home finally. And he's been wanting lovin's from both of us, especially his mama. And the baby came home. Anyway, so chicken fried steak is another thing that's hard to find up here. I am surprised my wife knew what chicken fried steak was.
Why would not? Love it.
Because she's from Virginia.
They cook that in Virginia.
Well, see, to me that's like a Texas dish.
Oh, God.
But in San Antonio, you can get it just about any place.
I think I can go sit
Thick and
Honey,
tender. What?
I didn't fix your plate.
Okay.
Everything's right there.
Okay. The very first drive-in restaurant in San Antonio de Tejas. It was the first drive-in restaurant. The Pig Stand. The guy who owned it, I think he had some tax issues, so he didn't want to just close it up or just sell it to anybody. So one of the ladies who had been working there forever, he sold it to her. Well, I don't know if the original owner had the same menu or not, but she had, I don't know if it's still open, but the Pig Stand. There was a restaurant in the Dallas area, DFW area, who had bought one of their signs, not from them directly, but from someone else, and they put it up in their restaurant, and they got sued for it. Now I don't remember what the outcome of that case was, because the restaurant was still around. It wasn't like it was a defunct restaurant sign. But the lady that owned it, when I went there several times, and you could get two different, well, actually you get more than two different kinds of chicken fried steak. One was from like a really, really good cut of beef, so it was like it melted in your mouth. And the other one was from a standard cut of chicken fried steak, cut, the cut that you would normally use for chicken fried steak. And it's not as tender, but it's still good. Look, anything from the Pig Stand is good. Is it the Pig Stand? I think, yeah, it's the Pig Stand, because they're famous for their pig sandwich. Now the one food they do have up here, two foods that are excellent: lobster roll and a whoopie pie. For a whoopie pie, if you're from down south, you've never heard of one, never seen one, whatever, think of a Yankee version of a moon pie. Another thing, two other things that are hard to find up here: RC and moon pies. You can find them, but you have to look. Chorizo. You can find Spanish chorizo up here. You cannot find Mexican chorizo. Although I found it once. I made breakfast tacos for my wife, not Lisa, but Carolyn. I remember I took Carolyn to a restaurant in San Antonio once. She took a bite of the beans. She's like, wow, these are flavorful. She took a bite of the rice. Wow, this is flavorful. I mean, Mexican food up here is just not what they serve in Texas. I mean, you go to a restaurant like where we go, it's very, very good. Even excellent. But you have to shop around, and some places are overly expensive, and except for that one place, it's not really that good. Chicken fried steak is another dish you can find, but you have to look around. Now, I always like my chicken fried steak with green beans and mashed potatoes, plenty of extra gravy. And this is cream gravy, it's a white gravy. And if it can turn a little brown, but I don't like the brown gravy on my chicken fried steak. I think, I like cream gravy on my chicken fried steak. My daughter was asking me about making it, and I have made it before. I haven't made it for my wife. I made it for my late wife. But I was standing in front of the countertop with the meat tenderizer, just pounding on that thing, because I can't stand tough meat. And chicken fried steak, the cut that you usually use for chicken fried steak, can be a little tough. But we ate it, we liked it, it was good. Now you can find tacos up here, but tacos are tacos, you know. I can make tacos at home, I make enchiladas at home, beans and rice at home. Well, the rice I usually use a package. I know I shouldn't do that. I'm somebody who likes to cook from scratch, but I'm getting away from doing that, and we've actually been buying TV dinners, believe it or not. And you know, Marie calendars. You can find Marie calendars up here. When we first moved here, when me and Carolyn first moved here, you could not find Marie calendars up here. I think Marie calendars is based out of the DFW area, but I'm not sure. They had a restaurant in San Antonio. I went there once, I think. Very good. Not cheap, but well worth the cost. That was the first time I had Eggs Benedict. Now, one of the restaurants we go to on Main Street in Keene, called Timoleon's. Whenever we go there, I get Eggs Benedict. The reason is because it's not expensive there, and it's very good. Everything at Timoleon's is good. Actually, everything at Timoleon's is very, very good. Even a hamburger at Timoleon's is very, very good. So it's just different food. And some of it I understand, you know, there are a lot of chilies and things that aren't going to grow that well up here. So, if I grow them, one of my enchilada recipes, it calls for, I forget what kind of chili, but it's a dried chili. It's not hot, it's flavor. And you reconstitute it, and I think you use that in the sauce. Huevos rancheros, you can't get up here. Breakfast tacos, you can't get up here. There's a lot of stuff. I miss Mexican food. When I lived in San Antonio, I lived there for 20-something years. I ate it every freaking day. That's what I ate. That's what I liked. That's what I loved. I ate it. Up here, I'm like, what is that? And can I eat it? Is it edible? But, the food's edible up here. It's just, you have to get used to food not having the flavor and the spice that you would find in Texas. And our restaurant, and it was also me and Carolyn's restaurant, it's sort of a home cooking kind of place. My kin down in Virginia, they've been there, and they have barbecue. They have Lazy Lobster. They have lobster rolls. They don't have lobster rolls or Lazy Lobster year round. It's just during lobster season. For those who don't know what a lobster roll is, think of big chunks of lobster meat in a sauce somewhat similar to what you would make, tuna salad with, or egg salad, or chicken salad. But it's different, tastes different. It's not the same flavor. And then you just put that in a roll or a bun. Whoopie pies or barbecue. Now, this one restaurant that my kin have been to, and both my wives have been to. They have Lazy Lobster. What's a Lazy Lobster? Lazy Lobster is when they crack it and remove the meat from the shell and put it all on the plate for you. Or you can get the lobster steamed. It is steamed anyway, but you can get the whole thing. I don't know. I have the sun coming directly in there, so I cannot tell. Is that better? Anyway, so the environment here is very different. The food's very different. Now, I'll tell you this. During high school, this was down south of Victoria, Texas. For 2 years, I took welding. I loved it. I'd like to do it up here, but I would wear blue jeans. That's all I would wear for years and years and years. Not till I got into my 30s and 40s, or actually my 40s, did I start wearing things other than blue jeans. So I will wear blue jeans. This is an unair-conditioned metal building. It was used for the, what do you say, like the auto mechanics. But we had a corner in the back that probably was once used for storage. You could open the car door, where you would drive something in and out. And there was a window, I don't remember if behind both or one of the arc welding stations. And then you had this dark, semi-transparent, heavy-duty plastic material in front of you and on one side of you. There's no air conditioning. There's a fan in the gas welding area. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt with a t-shirt underneath, blue jeans, boots. I have a cap on. I have my helmet on. I have gloves on. I have leathers on. It's the middle of summer, and I'm arc welding. Believe you me, I could not do that in Texas today. No way. I mean, that area of Texas is like 100% humidity, 100 degrees. I just don't think I could do that anymore. So anyway, so those are some differences between New Hampshire and Texas. And I mean, I really wish there was a way to describe New Hampshire so people in Texas would, I don't know, understand our environment. But again, you take the piney woods and you put it in a hilly, mountainous, rocky area. That's it. That's the best I can think of. You know, you have a lot of brush land in Texas, down in the valley of South Texas, the hill country. We don't have that here. We have very tall trees. So anyway, this video is very long, so I'm going to end it and go eat. And y'all have a great day.